Welcome back to All That Jam, where music has no limits. I am joined today by Chandrika and Jay from Nowhere Wolves. How we doing?
Doing good.
We are doing.
We are doing.
Very
I'm
nice.
I'm good enough right now. It's not the worst day of my life. That's not normally how I answer that.
We'll see how long that lasts.
Right. It's been raining here since this morning, and it's supposed to rain till tomorrow morning. So we'll see. I put all the dishes out back, so I didn't have to wash them.
Hell yeah.
All right, you guys are. I've been calling you post-punk phenoms. I absolutely love the EP you put out, even though it's pushing almost a year old, and the lineup has changed a little bit. We'll get into that. Some new material you're working on, but why don't you guys run me through the origin story?
The origin story is that there were, at the time, 3 bands in Pittsburgh who were doing reasonably well in 2024. And all 3 of those bands stopped doing well in 2024. And I particularly, in my band, Sommelier, had some dates that were booked that needed to be fulfilled that could not otherwise be fulfilled with Sommelier. So I pulled together some folks who are phenomenal musicians. And that's the origin story, really. Our second show, we recorded live and got pressed onto vinyl, and that is the album that you're mentioning. It's our only release so far, and it's mostly built up of material that I had written previously, because, as I say, it was about summer of 2024 that things started to go sour for everybody, and I had dates in July of 2024, so pulled everybody together and pulled some songs together.
Right. Now you have a different lineup now, right? Than you did at that point. You want to tell me who was in the band at this point and what they're playing?
Yeah. So with the kind of going back into the origin story, the premise of the band was basically a temporary solution to a problem that wasn't necessarily meant to go on long term, and then we ended up having a really cool vibe, seeing a lot of potential there, and then settled in with more intended long-term members. We have Paul Bradley on the drums. He's also in a ska punk band called the Slobberknockers. He's a really good drummer. And our newest addition, who's played 2 shows with us so far, is Wes Alden, and he's playing an electric violin.
Nice.
So Paul's been with us a little longer. Wes is brand new.
Right. Why do punk bands have cool names and jam bands always have these goofy names, like Goose or Pigeon playing ping pong?
I think that's part of why I was like, no, we got to keep this band real. I think that name was just too good to be a band that was just like a temporary, you fill out a few dates and then dissipate. And I was like, that's a great name. It's actually a Buzzcocks reference.
Right. Okay. Yep. Okay. So you said that those songs on that release were earlier stuff. Did you guys, once you decided, hey, wait, this really works, did you start writing together at that point, or did you start composing specifically for this band?
Yeah, we're in that process right now.
I think a lot of it too is just like some of these songs in their original orientation didn't even have drums or had more electronic drums or elements, and then the violin alone being a new lead instrument is also reshaping some songs that have existed since before Nowhere Wolves. But yeah, now we are in the writing songs that do specifically be like, oh, let's have a violin in this type of part, or collaboration.
Would you say that you're trying to make this go in maybe a slightly different direction than you have with things in the past?
Yeah,
always.
Yeah, I've never worked with an outside of the box instrument in a band in general. Like, I think that alone is a huge different direction. That's an uncharted territory for both of us. We know how to talk to drummers and talk to other guitar players. It's like a whole new
thing.
Composition. Yeah,
we don't know how to talk to singers.
I hear you with that. We had Surprise Chef one, and the guy, they're all instrumental. They're out of Australia. They're all instrumental. And I was like, so what are the pros and cons of not having a singer? He said, well, the pro is you don't have a singer. I love it.
I had a lot of good relationships with singers. I don't got no beef.
Right, yeah, I'm with you. He was just he was making jokes about, everybody's hauling in all their equipment, and the singer's like, "I got my mic."
Right.
If
If
that,
that.
if
Like,
that.
oh, shit. Okay. With Bubba. The first show I played the band I only do vocals, I did leave my mic at the venue, and it was the only thing I brought. So I've been that guy.
That's a good story. You said that in 24 the bands were doing great, then they weren't doing great. What happened? I thought Pittsburgh had a pretty vibrant scene for what you guys are doing.
It has a busy scene for sure. Um,
It has a busy scene, and it has a scene of people of varying degrees of commitment.
Okay.
which isn't always even a bad thing. Everyone just has different paths, and finding the right people to work with in any project or any field of life, you gotta get that perfect mix. It's similar to like a romantic relationship. Like you gotta have all the right pieces to get that long-term longevity. Um, the band I was in, not that I have to get too personal about it, a big problem was that we also lived together, and you can things implode, or you need to step back, or you find out other members of your band need to go do college now, and stuff like that happens. People's life goes different paths, and
I hear you. A lot of GM bands do the whole living together thing. It seems like it's part of a rite of passage.
yeah, I mean, it was not the best choice I've ever made. A lot of good came out of it. One thing that came out of it that was positive that will be relevant in later was that that house was a DIY basement venue
Nice.
called the Rose Bowl, which now that house is gone, I actually still use that name for booking, open mic hosting, stuff like that.
Right. Very nice. And I guess part of if you're living with people and then all of a sudden you start touring, you're still living with them. At least if you just tour together, you only have to live with them for 5
Yeah,
months a year or something
exactly.
over the course of it. That's fantastic. All right. So what's your approach to songwriting? Do you do the lyrics first? Does it just happen randomly, brilliant little flashes kind of thing?
How do you approach songwriting?
We both have a lot of different approaches. I'm in a big random handful of bands where my exact role in that process varies. My ideal role is that I'm more of an editor. So if you bring me a few lines, I can run off of that and make it something bigger, or I can rearrange them, or I can come up with like, oh, let's change this word so there's a better alliteration. But I'm not super big on being the guy who is like just comes together with some lyrics. But in general, I feel like I think of lyrics before I think of music. But that's me, and I'm a bass player and sometimes backing vocalist, so my approach might be different than a front person's would be.
Right.
How about you? You're the writing guy.
As long as I don't forget the microphone, I'm good.
That's a good answer. Well, I mean, sometimes you get things like Rush. Neil Peart wrote all the lyrics. The drummer wrote all the lyrics. So
As of right now, I am writing all the lyrics, but I would very much like her to edit them for me.
Yeah, I'm a big editor above anything else in the writing process.
and that's so important. I feel like some people don't have an editor and they don't put out their best stuff because what they believe to be great isn't necessarily,
Yeah, and we also have we've talked about influences for writing as well, and shown each other some of our influences, and she can see where I would get some of my rhyme patterns from and say that these are not rhymes.
Yeah, his exact like writing style is vastly different than mine, which is where the editing thing makes sense at that point, because I'm not going to write lyrics in the same shape that you might, but I might have an idea of like, oh, let's swap out that word and it gives it like a different meaning or something like that. Like,
right now, when you're writing now, are you writing with a violin as a lead instrument in mind?
Yeah. The other thing is, Wes even stretches it sort of beyond. There are, you would think, okay, violin, there are limitations as there are with any instrument, but Wes brings this whole rig to the situation, which we have a new song that's on the funk side, and Wes is playing essentially a wah setting through a wah pedal. It's still a violin, but he's not playing Brahms.
Yeah, he's
or
got like a
anything.
pedal board and everything. The possibilities are endless.
Yeah. So you're very much catching us in an extremely creative period because there are a number of ways a song can go. There are a number of ways an arrangement can go.
Right. What about older tunes that you bring to this project? Do they get rearranged, or do you say, here you go, figure out where you belong?
A little bit of both. There is a learning curve to us not having worked with a violinist before. And not wanting to be too oppressive to him. I can be oppressive to a bassist all day. I can especially be oppressive to a guitarist.
We also come from pretty different, well, I mean, similar, but different musical backgrounds. And I've grown up around the punk scene a lot and been to a lot of DIY shows. Our violinist, prior to working with us, plays in like an orchestra. You know,
Okay.
he hadn't gone to a local bar and seen a punk gig before. You know what I mean? So the whole approach is all new, which I'm always a huge fan of. Just when people come from totally different places and combine, because you really do get more of a unique twist than something where it's more intentional. Like, oh yeah, we both like this, let's make it. You know what I mean? I mean, we like similar things too, but
I love the idea of you having the violin on there. I mean, is this something that you sat down and said, what can we do that's completely out of the box, or did it just happen? Did you stumble
I don't know
upon
how we thought of that.
A little bit. Well, I think we thought of it because
I think it was from a pun. We were trying to come up with an alternative band name, and I was like, "What about like violence, but spelled like violins?" And I was like, "I feel like we'd need a violin player then." I think that might have
Did
been
you
like
say
a
that?
seed of getting toward that idea.
Also, we happened to encounter a couple of violinists at that time, just in passing, not even considering somebody for the group, but we just met a couple of violin players. And yeah, I think it was a confluence of those things.
And then we ended up losing our lead guitarist and being like, well, we need a lead instrument. And we're like, what if we put out an ad? Wes is very talented. He picks stuff up really fast. He's been awesome to work with.
It's a brilliant move there. All right, let's talk a little bit about the Loud and Proud Music Festival you have coming up, I guess, June 8th. You told me before we started this is the second time?
That's right, yeah.
So, yeah, a little bit about the history and what it's supporting. I know that it has a cause attached to it.
You talk about how you were playing the first one.
Yeah, so I'll leave out the detail of how the first one should have happened the year prior, because that's a whole separate story. The first official one, when that happened, it was presented by my band Lilith and his band Somalia. We were in two separate bands presenting an event together. With the situation mentioned, how we kind of had bands falling apart for a while, we, like I said, my booking name is the Rose Bowl. His booking name is Trafford Estate. So before we even knew what was going on, we're like, let's just present it that way next year. And then whatever bands we're in, we'll figure it out. I lost my train of thought. So if you would like to take over from there.
Yeah, I mean, it was something that was on both of our radars because independently, before we even met each other, we had each put on, fundraiser events, music festivals or concerts that were fundraisers for area nonprofits here in Pittsburgh and beyond.
Yeah.
But so it's something that we had both had experience in, and as we were spending more time together, it was sort of just a natural thing to happen where we would both be involved and in the planning of it, and we each have our strengths with that as well. We're capable of doing putting something like this together on our own, but it's a really great collaboration in the sense that we know what's in each of our respective wheelhouses. We know what needs to get done, and we sort of divide it up pretty naturally.
Yeah, and being teamed up too, especially an event of this scale, is awesome and a huge help all around, because it's one thing to organize a fundraiser show as a single unit for a regular show, a 4 or 5 band bill on an evening. This is an all-day event with 10 art vendors and all of these other elements, and the teamwork there really makes a huge difference in getting everything into place, because it's just a bigger scale event.
You got any food trucks coming in, things like that, beers? What's going on with that?
It's at a brewery. It's at venues called Allegheny City Brewing. It's on the north side of Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did have a food truck last year as we were at a separate location. The venue itself does regular food trucks. They have their own schedule, so there will be food in the area, but it's not specifically the Loud and Proud food truck. But
Right, right.
there'll be food, drinks, stuff like that.
Right, you need to have the food there after like the fourth band and the guy's had 6 beers. You want to shove a sub or something in his belly.
So,
As a guy who ran a house venue, that was a big thing too. I was like, I got to make sure I have snacks for people. I don't want them to leave before the gig's over. Like,
she always did.
put in a donation bucket, and worst case, you just get a bunch of bags of chips, maybe some oranges.
She continues to do the most because she runs a monthly open mic out of a venue here that's a DIY venue called 222 Ormsby, and I might be the only open mic that I am aware of in the city that the attendees get fed.
Yeah, so I'll do more of like an open potluck thing, or like worst case, if I'm broke and like I don't have time, like you buy a bunch of chips or something.
Right. If I have people watching who aren't into punk, don't know about DIY stuff, what do you guys mean when you say a DIY venue?
I had somebody, I don't know if this quote comes from a bigger place, so if it does, I apologize. I had a friend say, they were like, I used to say it's so DIY stands for do it yourself. You say it's not do it yourself, it's do it together.
Okay.
And a lot of that is, rather than like, it's hard to explain.
But it's still DIY.
It's still just
It's not DIT.
But it's a lot more like community based versus you're relying on a venue and a venue's resources. You're basically having a space where you're able to conduct things yourself. Like a lot of it is learning as you go. You don't necessarily. I'm not a professional booker. I've gained this experience myself through the past few years just from independent freelance type vibe might be another more common term for those.
I remember back in the 80s when I was growing up in Baltimore, and we had a lot of punk bands around, and it was always in someone's basement, and that's what I think when I think DIY venue.
Yeah, my house, that was the vibe. It was an acoustic basement venue. That one.
I love
There's
that.
also just kind of rooms that you can use that for that are little venues that are nice, laid back, chill places. Homes being the big one.
All right. So who's on the bill? I guess No Werewolves. Yeah, I guess you guys are headlining. Who else you have on the bill?
So with
I was going to say, as we mentioned, so one of the bands, going back to our origin story, her band that was sort of going south in 2024 has since reemerged. Lilith, they will also be on the bill. So Candrika is pulling double duty, along with hosting the event.
So basically, as I said earlier, how it's being presented by the Rose Bowl and Trafford Estate. We each have Lilith is representing the Rose Bowl, as that was the band that lived in the original Rose Bowl, and No Werewolves is representing Trafford Estate. So we're doing a combined halftime set.
Okay.
That'll be a fun surprise of how that's exactly going to go. But instead of 2 separate 30-minute sets, we're doing one where we'll kind of be emerged together.
The switch over? Are you going to do the infamous switch over?
Or
like the bassist switches and then the guitar
I'm
is
the bassist in both, so we're chilling there.
Both bands are just going to break up on stage.
There's a drummer switch over, and then everything else is different enough that they can just all coexist on the stage.
Right there. Yeah, I saw Government Mule and Mo do a combined show once, and Government Mule played one of their songs. Slowly, everyone from Mo came out, switched instruments. Then they started playing a Mo song, and then they all switched back. And I was like, "That's a neat little trick."
That's a hint of the vibe, yeah. The full lineup here. So we have Lilith and No Werewolves representing the promotion. We have Aggressica, Nutmeg Party, Casey Catone, Les Paul, Uprising, Lady Grace and the Infinite Failure, Sarah Halter, Justier, More Love Baby, and Millie Dread. So there are 10 bands in addition to the hosting performance.
Right, and you give everybody a half hour?
Yes, like I said, except for the halftime one will be a little different.
Nice, that's fantastic.
The event itself will be an 8-hour event.
Right, a lot of bands, bands. I always joke that you can listen to Minor Threat's whole discography in the time of one Fish song. So again, a half-hour set sometimes is the perfect amount of time to spend.
Yeah, great.
And these are all Pittsburgh acts.
Yep.
So as you said, there is obviously a very vibrant scene. The performance lineup was submission based, and unfortunately, there were folks that we had to turn away, but that just goes to show you that, folks, if you're not regularly coming through Pittsburgh, you might not know what's going on here. That's true of most places that aren't the big ones. So
yeah, there was so many. Every person who applied, I'm like, I would love to do a whole weekend thing one day. I'm not saying I'm planning for it. That's hard. I mean,
we could probably do it.
there's so much awesome stuff, and just you can only do so much in an 8-hour period that you're able to do.
Finding a big farm so people can rage all night.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's the best way. So, are you guys hire a stage runner to do this, or are you all doing all the? You got 10 minutes to get on stage. We're on a schedule here.
We also part of so we had the performance lineup, which was submission based. We also had a staff sign up. So we do have a good chunk of folks who are graciously volunteering their time to assist with the logistical side of things. They're excited to do so, especially having seen one last year and gone to her open mics and see how things are run just generally. So
yeah, we have my stepdad's doing sound. We have 4 photographers, a couple door people, a couple security, and then a few like floater volunteers. So, and then we'll be overseeing as much as we can, making sure stuff runs on schedule.
And the brewery has staff, right?
yeah, but it's we're not putting it on them. I mean, we're
Right. But at least they're there as eyes for you. Hey, there's a guy over there in the corner. You might want to check out. So, are we getting new tunes in the set list for Loud and Proud?
Yeah, from both Nowhere Wolves and Lilith.
Yeah, I think so.
Nice, very nice. Can you name? Can I ask you what you're most excited to play?
I'm most excited about the that. No, but I'm not telling you what it is. But we're each doing like a short set with a together song in the middle, and then a short set. Like
so the together song's the one, right?
Yeah, that's the one I'm the most excited about. We haven't, at least Lilith has not officially picked what ours are yet. We're gonna be talking about it. But there might be a little other crossover here and there too.
Nice. Yeah, I was going to say, with all those bands, do you think people show up and sit in with each other kind of thing?
With each other? I mean, I think we're the ones who are most apt to do that. Also because for a good period prior, like in early 2024, I was filling in for Lilith on guitar. So I know their older material.
Right.
Okay. But I think, we're and also one of the other bands on the bill is called Uprising. That's her siblings band.
Okay.
She does a song with them generally. So
yeah, fantastic. So let's boy, I totally spaced. I did what you did, Candrika, there.
I'm very bad at staying on track a lot of the time. I try very hard though. It doesn't make me unproductive. I just get lost in thought.
Right. I guess let's go with the new stuff you're writing. Is this going to be a studio thing, or do you think that recording live and releasing it is an easier way and maybe a better representation of what you do?
I don't know that it's necessarily easier, but it was something
higher pressure, low key.
Yeah.
But hey, no, you go ahead.
What I was just gonna say was it was a lot of that coming about was a lot of nervous energy, dealing with the situations that we were going through with our bands at the time, and also it was a bucket list thing for me. I wanted to get for several years now I've wanted to be involved with a really great live rock album, and I suddenly had this opportunity, given that this band was new as a whole and there weren't really any rules because it didn't come about the same way that a band typically does come together. So basically I'm saying I didn't really float the idea as much as I imposed the idea that we would be recording our second show.
I thought it was cool.
Well, I feel like bands should record every show. I know that isn't popular in the punk arena as much, but
I think. Sorry. I think another kind of reason behind the live album was because at the formation of this band, it wasn't intended to be a long-term thing. So it was a way to capture it and represent it, even if it was just those few dates we were fulfilling. Now it is beyond, and that's, we're really grateful for that.
Right. I mean, it's, Bandcamp, if you look, or some of these bands on Bandcamp, they record every show and put it up there. And, maybe they make $100 from people throwing them $1 or $2 for a song. But I guess it's a return on investment. How long does it take you to master recordings? Myself, I would just record it and put it up there as a bootleg recording, and warts and all.
Yeah.
It was very polished the way that it was done, because we hired a producer to come in and make sure that everything was set. It was another one of those things where we sort of outsourced the headache of it, like we're doing with the some of the staffing of the festival. We're still obviously overseeing that, but hiring Shell Shock Multimedia to be the person in charge of engineering the recording and then mixing it afterwards went a long way, rather than being worried about setting up mics and being worried about setting up mics and checking mics and checking recording levels and all of that stuff while also trying to perform.
Yeah, so. Especially with with it being on vinyl, the sound quality and the mix quality a lot more important to make sure it's nice and crisp.
Right. So somebody listening to an MP3 on their phone, I guess it doesn't matter what the quality is, really.
Yeah, not as much.
Yeah, and I years ago I was a real estate agent for a long time, and one of our things was 20% of what you do makes 80% of your money. So it's best to pay somebody else to do the 80% that's only making 20% of your money. So
except there's no gaining money in producing a live album.
No, there's I know, but just your time. If you
I know.
If you can spend 80% of your time just working on the music and the band, as opposed to having to do clerical stuff, and unless you like that, do you enjoy that part of it, the booking and all that? I know some people are hustlers and they love going after that stuff.
I think for me, it was kind of one of the first times I felt like I was actually good at something. Like I naturally had a skill that was making a positive impact on the people around me, other than just like, oh, this is fun or makes me feel good or whatever.
Right.
Especially the open mic things being a bigger part of it. However, being on this level of local musician, you're also your own manager. I'm running like 12 Instagram accounts. I'm constantly sending emails. I don't fucking sleep. That's not like the most ideal thing, but the reward is worth it. And also sometimes it is hard to just trust, if I like hired a manager, they would, do the things that the way that the vision.
Right.
So it's a love-hate moment all around. But when you're really invested in something, you do everything you can to make it the best you can, and you learn what you got to do, and you ask for help where you need it. So.
I hear you. So looking past June 8th, is there anything else on the books, or what are you eyeing in the future?
Yeah, I mean, we have dates booked into the summer. Another thing that I'm personally involved with is I'm in the process of re-recording an album that I first put out in 2005 for its 20th anniversary. And I'm doing that because I was not much of a producer in high school, but the songs were quite good and they worked together well.
I was going to say you had to be in high school.
I was in high school.
It was 20 years ago.
20 years ago, yeah. So I'm sort of knee deep in that at the moment, working with a friend of mine, and yeah, so I'm aiming for a fall release of that, but it's very and that material is very sort of torch song gothy. I refer people a lot to like Mark Allman stuff with Mark and the Mambas. That was an influence on me at the time. So yeah, that's in the works. What are you eyeing apart outside of? I guess the question wasn't what are you eyeing outside of Nowhere Wolves, but what I mean, we mentioned to you that we are writing with Nowhere Wolves, and we are going to be recording with Nowhere Wolves.
So the official upcoming I'm just going to shout the dates because all the details are going to probably get lost. But Nowhere Wolves has a show on June 21st at 222 Ormsby. We have a show on June 25th at Moondogs, and we have a show on July 16th at Arsenal Lanes.
Nice.
So those are our upcoming shows. My other project, Lilith, just finished recording an upcoming EP, so I've been knee deep in that. We've been very, very busy. My other band's the Femalians. We're working on a music video and getting new music. I'm always working on something.
I hear you. I hear you. We put the link for the Trafford Estates band camp. I guess that's where all your stuff lives, Jay. And can we get a product shot again?
Oh yeah.
And that's where this lives. You still have some of these 10 inches available for people?
I think a couple beyond this one. Yeah.
Okay, very nice, very nice. So if you're into that, go check it out. You can listen to the whole thing there. If you just want to listen and you want to throw them a couple bucks, you can buy a track or two, which is always nice. Do you guys do t-shirts, merch, and stuff like that?
Another thing we got to get on very soon.
We we just started talking to our friends at Powerhouse Productions about t-shirt design. So that's in the works. It's in the earlier phases of just concepts, but it's a coming.
Right. The cover of the album on a shirt, a black shirt with the two colors of the thing. That's a shirt, man. People would buy that because you don't know exactly what it means. You know, it's one of those shirts that you're like, now here, wolves.
I underestimated how many people would just go with the breakout of that and not. It's one of those things where I'm expecting people to look deeper and look at the colors and go by the colors. But I get a lot of people saying now here wolves.
Yeah.
So
but that's I always go for easy. I'm big on low hanging fruit sometimes. You know, when I have another YouTube channel, Wook Plus, and like we just print shirts that say Wook with a plus at the end. And people buy them. We have a little W plus that we put on beanies. People buy the beanie.
Yeah.
I don't go so much for low hanging fruit as much as I am low hanging fruit.
There's a song for you.
I feel like you'd say that in one of your songs. Yeah.
Do you? Okay, very nice, fantastic. All right, thank you guys so much. I mean, I think we covered everything, right?
Yeah. I appreciate this. This all came about because I ventured finally onto Blue Sky after being after hearing a lot about it, and it's been very interesting following you.
Yes. Well, real quick before we go, how this started for me was you covered Respect. How did you pick Respect? That's you guys do a fantastic job with it, and it's unexpected.
Yeah, thank you. It's one of those things where I could just hear how we would do it. So it was less about approaching, let's cover this classic song, as much as I know I can hear how this is going to sound when we do it. Let's give it a shot. So
there you go. All right. Thank you guys so much. Everybody out there watching, make sure that you like, subscribe, go to our social medias at All That Jam Pod all over the place. Hang out for a sec, guys. And remember, stay beautiful, but don't stay underground too long. We'll see you soon.